Prosecution, are you ready to commence with your opening statement?
Ready to proceed, Your Honor.
Yes, thank you.
May I proceed now?
Yes, you may. Please proceed now.
Your Honor, I will now hereby my opening statement for prosecution. Your Honor, may it please the court. Today, as a prosecutor empowered by the State of Zartanu, I respectfully will proceed with 4 standpoints to protect evidence in order to bring them to the bench trial. 1 is that Sandy Officer already had reasonable suspicion that the defendant, Archer Parker, was armed and dangerous to conduct pre-arrest search. 2, the identification of the defendant as a result of the photo lineup was under a lawful procedure. Next, all the evidence found as a result of the unclosed search by Officer Momo are legally obtained, since there was a reasonable suspicion that the defendant posed a risk, and the search is necessary to remove that risk. Last but not least, the defendant's admission to Sandy Officer and Officer Momo was obtained due to lawful detention and interrogation. Your Honor, on March 1st, 2021, Sandy Officer was in charge of a traffic checkpoint on the corner of Pacific Avenue and Esther Road. Therefore, she has received reports of drugs being moved along this routine. At 11 a.m., Sandy Officer directed an older model black BMW into the checkpoint and asked for driver's personal documents. The defendant, Archer Parker, appeared nervous. Her eyes were bloodshot and avoid direct eye contact with the police. Thus, Sandy Officer decided to conduct further investigation and ordered both the defendant and the attendant carrier to step out of the car with their hands visible. After that, Sandy Officer questioned the defendant about the content of the packages, but she refused to disclose anything with indecent and uncooperative attitude. Also, at that moment, the defendant's hand consciously searched for something shady inside her pocket, being afraid that could be a weapon, plus the doubtful attitude before. Sandy Officer had to immediately...
Sorry, counsel, I apologize for interrupting. I did not understand a word that you said. You said that she reached for something shabby in her pocket?
Yes, Your Honor.
Shabby.
Shady.
Okay, all right, thank you. Please proceed.
Okay. I will continue my opening statement. Also, at that moment, the defendant's hand continually searched for something shady inside her pocket, being afraid that it could be a weapon, plus the doubtful attitude before. Sandy Officer had to immediately conduct a freak search on the defendant as a public safety measure to prevent any potential danger. As a result, Sandy Officer found a small electronic scale inside the defendant's front pocket, which are commonly used when portioning out drugs for sale. Subsequently, Sandy Officer searched the defendant's car and confiscated a baggie containing suspicious white powder with a black bag filled with cash. Defendant Archer Parker was later arrested and taken to the police station. Meanwhile, a witness named Berrywash went to the police station to report a suspicious activity of a PDP employee who drove a BMW to pick up goods from nearby neighborhood and load them into the trunk of her car. Through photo lineup identification, thanks to Sandy Officer, Berrywash realized that Archer Parker was the one whom she had seen act suspiciously. This identification was not only conducted under a lawful procedure, but also strengthens the reasonable belief that the defendant had committed an offense. Based on the arrest and identification result, Sandy Officer and Officer Momo conducted an interrogation of Archer Parker. The defendant denied everything she knew about the seized items and even posed a disrespectful behavior to the officers. About 10 minutes after the defendant was returned to the holding cell, Officer Momo heard her screams, so she went there to check. Officer Momo saw the defendant pulling at the zipper of a jacket and looked like she was trying to make a sharp edge by breaking it. After seeing this, Officer Momo was worried about the defendant's safety as well as others in custody. So she decided to immediately conduct an unclosed search of the defendant's person to prevent any potential risk. Faced with that situation, it makes sense for Officer Momo to conduct the search, and surprisingly, Officer Momo seized a fold-up note which was found in the defendant's waistband that read, "Meet me on the rooftop of the party at 7 p.m. and was signed by Alex Smith, who is well known to the Zartanu police for dealing drugs in the area. After the search, Sandy Officer and Officer Momo decided to question the defendant again about the newly obtained evidence. And at the same time, they also received laboratory results confirming that the white powder was 750 grams of pure cocaine. Senior Officer Strait and Officer Momo returned to the interrogation room with the defendant and told her that they have enough evidence for impeachment, and this was her last chance to enjoy the leniency of the law. The defendant became more uncooperative when answering questions, but she admitted her offense afterwards. Overall, the defendant was placed under detention within 8 hours and have enough time to rest after questioning periods. This final interrogation of Senior Officer Strait and Officer Momo was considered under provisions of law and also necessary for them to investigate a major drug operation. Your Honor, as a prosecutor, I believe that the law will appropriately adjudicate the defendant out of pocket when organized drug-related crimes are threatening our society with a tragic consequence to the people of Zutphen. Therefore, in today's hearing, 3 witnesses and I will defend all the above evidence so as to deny opinions that have been raised in the motion to exclude evidence. That will be all, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Your Honor, may it please the court. Today, as an advocate of my client, Ms. Eltra Parker, I, along with my co-counsel, Shruti Sharma, stand here to defend the rights and legitimate interests for my client, which was seriously violated by the police officers according to the law of Sultani. Your Honor, I respectfully will proceed with 4 requests to exclude evidence. First of all, Officer Strait did not have the required reasonable suspicion that Ms. Eltra Parker was armed and dangerous to conduct a pat-down search before an arrest. Secondly, the identification of Ms. Eltra Parker as a result of the photo board should be excluded as Officer Strait suggestively influenced the witness. Thirdly, evidence found as a result of the ankle search of Eltra Parker, which was conducted in an improper manner. Finally, Eltra Parker's admission to Officer Strait and Officer Momo was obtained by unlawful detention and interrogation. Today, the court will hear from 3 of our witnesses how the police officers failed to follow the certain new procedural law. Your Honor, Ms. Eltra Parker is a 28-year-old transgender person and a chemical engineering student. She is also a part-time delivery driver for PDP company. On 1st March 2021, Ms. Eltra Parker was on a delivery run and was directed to the checkpoint at Pacific Avenue. Officer Strait performed a frisk search on Ms. Parker without warrant or her consent. Also, Officer Strait did not have reasonable belief as she ignored her traffic checkpoint duty while conducting the search when she recognized Jane Carrier from a previous arrest and a PDP delivery company had been under the investigation by the police. This led her further search for weapons, but she just found a stress ball. Ms. Parker, on the other hand, was distressed by Officer Strait's harsh and accusatory inquiry, so she was reaching for her stress ball. Even when Officer Strait didn't find any weapon, she continued to conduct the free search without reasonable suspicion of hiding the weapon. Later on, just a small electronics kit was discovered from the search. We anticipate that Ms. Parker, our first witness, will describe how her privacy rights were invaded by the police officer and how she was frisked unlawfully. The court will today hear from Ms. Eltra Parker and Ms. Jane Carrier how Officer Strait treated them while they were pulled over at the checkpoint. Therefore, I respectfully request the court to adjudge and adjudicate this evidence as unlawfully obtained in this trial. Your Honor, when Officer Strait returned to the station, she received a report by elderly named Body Wash about seeing an individual with blonde hair in the PDB uniform carrying and loading the truck with suspicious parcel. So they identified the suspect by photo lineup, but Officer Strait showed 12 photo lineup with only 2 blonde individuals. While Ms. Wash had already described the characteristic of the suspect. Ms. Wash didn't feel confident in making the decision before Officer Strait suggests the individual by pointing at the photo number 3. The court will today hear from Mr. Lanny Bloom, our second witness, how Officer Strait was suggestive toward Ms. Body Wash. Therefore, I respectfully request the court exclude any evidence found as a result of photo vote identification. In the interview room, Ms. Eltrapaga was interrogated with confusing questions by officer, and even Officer Momo did threats and tried to convince my client. After the interview, when Ms. Parker was trying to the cell, she was playing with her zipper as a habit because she was nervous and upset. Then suddenly, Officer Momo came in and instructed her to remove her clothes without informing her why or how she was conducted. As I pleaded earlier, Ms. Eltrapaga was already performed a free search by officer straight. Hence, I would like to request the court to exclude the evidence found from this unethical enclosed search. Your Honor, the enclosed search has caused Ms. Parker to be severely affected, both physically and psychologically. And she was in custody for nearly 8 hours, and she claimed that she was questioned for at least 4 hours. Mr. Parker lost track of police line of questioning, couldn't be able to fully understand or aware of what police officer was saying, and she incorrectly answered yes to Officer Strait, and Officer Momo repeated aggressively if she knew about the white powder found in her car. Ms. Parker immediately took back the statement, but the officers paid no attention. On this account, I respectfully request the court to exclude the evidence from this offensive and abusive interrogation. Your Honor, as an advocate working and living under the laws, I believe in fairness and justice for my client, Ms. Eltrapaga, and I believe that the court's fairness will stand up for my client. Therefore, today's hearing, I, my co-counsel, my client Eltrapaga, and 2 other witnesses will defend the views that had been raised. Your Honor, I, on behalf of my client, Ms. Eltrapaga, request the court that all of the evidence obtained by following illegal and unlawful procedure shall be subject to exclusion. That will be all, Honor. Thank you.